Well, week 10 of the head-to-head challenge and 2 champions. RJ defeated Rory Barlow last week to claim a title that was vacated by Will White. But Will is back, as you can see, and they've both agreed to put their belts on the line. Welcome to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, while senior handicapper Steve Wyss is also with me. Both RJ and Will get 2 official picks. Whoever has the best record with their selection stays on for next week. And also this week, we are extending our hot dog segment. Some more relish required for some big price fancies. Steve's back inside, as you can see, after his garden exploits from midweek. Steve, fair play to RJ and Will. They're not dodging each other. This is not Fury versus Joshua.
Welcome everyone, and yes, I am back inside for this one. It was when I came back after doing the Europa League show on Monday. My hands were absolutely freezing down. I could hardly move my hands. It was a pretty cold one out there, but yeah, it was. We managed to get it done, and it's great to see 2 champions against each other here. And let's hope we can get the graphics the right way around this time, because the Europa League show, we had different personalities. Anyone who's seen that, yeah, I mean, you say it's not, Tyson again, not Tyson, Joshua against.
I don't think Tyson dodged anyone, did he?
No, he didn't. No. He didn't dodge anyone. But this is certainly a heavyweight clash, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It is. Will, though, do you consider yourself the true champ? You had to duck out last week. Do you consider yourself the main man?
Well, morning, gentlemen, and morning to the viewers. I guess I do consider myself champion, yeah. Unfortunately, I had to kind of take a break last week due to injury, but I'm back to defend my crown. And, more than anything, I don't think RJ would want to be crowned undisputed champion without taking on the reigning champion. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is fair. There is a little caveat, maybe, RJ, next to your name for last week's win, because you weren't taking on the defending title holder. That's not to do down your achievement, but I guess, from your point of view, you want to take on the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And fair play to Will. Welcome back. While you were out, I took care of business, and here we are, right? No, but I just had an early opportunity, and I took it, right? Just like a fighter who had an injury, right? It came on in and took care of business in short notice. So hopefully we can both have a good week, right? Both get profit for the viewers, and may the best man win.
Yeah, so for a good clean fight over the course of the podcast, the YouTube show. If you're watching with us, the boys get 2 pick seats. We're going to go back to back with Will's and then RJ's. Will, we're going to kick off with your first selection in Italy. This is Inter against Roma. Inter minus 159 favourites. Roma plus 430. Big price. They are in action, of course, in Europe tonight. We are recording ahead of Europa League and Conference League fixtures. Jose Mourinho has come out and said that Inter should win Serie A by 20 points. But as far as you're concerned, a low-scoring win is how you see this one.
Yeah, Dan, obviously a bit tongue-in-cheek there from Jose, but I think it's undoubtable that Inter are by far the strongest team in Serie A. They've got the best underlying stats with an XG supremacy of plus 1.26 goals per 90, which is very strong. It's a lot stronger than Roma's for sure. Interestingly, according to my models, I have the same ratings difference between Inter, the best team in Serie A, and Napoli, the second best team in Serie A, as I do Barcelona and Athletic Bilbao in La Liga, second best and fifth best respectively. And I think that would shock most people, albeit Barca are kind of riddled with injuries at the moment, which we may or may not get onto later on. For me, the word I'd use to describe Inter at the moment is they're very settled. Inzaghi has a very settled squad. He's got them ticking. They made some very shrewd acquisitions over the summer with the likes of Thuram, Fratesi, Sommer, Alexis Sanchez. In addition to the quality of Barella and Lautaro Martinez they already had. On the other hand, Roma don't really convince me, despite their strong results. I think the main problem they've had is they've been missing a lot of their key pieces, especially down the spine of their team. Club captain Lorenzo Pellegrini has been missing, I believe, for most games this season. I think he came back for one last weekend, but he's out again. Paulo Dybala's out. Chris Smalling's been out for a long time, as has Tammy Abraham. So they're missing a lot of key pieces there. And I think with reduced rest, they're playing tonight, as you mentioned, in the Europa League. Inter played on Tuesday. I think they were one of the early kickoffs. They rested quite a few players. They rotated Barella, Thuram out. they also rotated both starting wing backs versus Salzburg. They weren't particularly impressive, but I think they've got pretty much everything in their favour here. And I think it's very hard to see a result where without Inter Milan winning this game. And I favour the 1-2-0, 3-0 kind of scorelines, or maybe 2-1, all covered by the under 4.5, because we know Jose likes to come into these games, try and keep it quite tight. So in conclusion, my bet is Inter Milan to win the game and under 4.5 goals, minus 115. Interestingly, the price boost you get for the under 4.5 element takes it from minus 159 for the Inter win alone to minus 115, which I think is significant and too much, really.
It looks like a really interesting play, and RJ's got a play on it as well, which we'll get to shortly. But let's get the second pick from Will. We dive into La Liga. You referenced Athletic Club previously. They take on Valencia, much improved, of course, this season. They flirted with relegation last campaign. Athletic Club are minus 141 to win this one. Valencia plus 410. Both of Will's picks, incidentally, 1 p.m. Eastern and 1:30 Eastern, so Sunday afternoon. Athletic Club are pretty consistent in terms of their year-on-year performance here. Are they consistent enough to get a winning play from you, Will? What's the selection here?
I think, Dan, normally this is not really in my wheelhouse, this kind of play. It's quite aggressive. The price is plus 133, so it's big plus money. And it's on Bilbao minus 1 goal on the Asian handicap to beat Valencia here. So we need them to win by more than 2 goals, albeit we get stake refunded on a 1-goal Bilbao win. Bilbao, for me, are one of those teams that have gone under the radar this year in La Liga. You're right, they are very consistent season on season, but they've got the third best XG supremacy in La Liga this season. I really took note last weekend when they were heavily backed in against Barca away from home. Barca drifted from, I believe, minus 140 all the way out to minus 110, minus 105 in some places for that match. And that kind of money is significant, and bettors should really take note when they see that weight of money coming in. Generally, it's coming from professionals that, know the underlying data in real detail. Prior to the Barca game, Bilbao crushed Almeria 3-0 at home. They beat local rivals Real Sociedad in the XG battle, despite losing the game 3-0, and that was away from home. And really, they deserve to win that game, not lose 3-0, that's for sure. They're also another close-knit, settled squad. I'm not sure how many viewers will know this, but Athletic Bilbao are from the Basque region of Spain, and they only allow players with Basque roots to play for the first team. So they've consistently got this well-gelled kind of squad that feel like they've got this kind of communality between themselves. And this season, they've got Iñaki and Nico Williams, 2 brothers, very attacking, potent threats with a lot of pace. Owen Sanset kind of plays in between them in the trident behind Gorka Gurazeta. And they've produced an attacking XG per 90 of 1.59 goals this season compared with 1.46 last. I do take your point about Valencia being a better team this season. And I do quite like this Valencia side managed by local legend Ruben Baraja. They're young, they're energetic. I can see them going on to be quite a formidable force in La Liga. I think ultimately in this game, Bilbao are just going to be a little bit too experienced and have a little bit extra quality. And Bilbao have won 3 out of 5 of their home games this season by more than 1 goal. So I think, this price is plus 133. That's roughly, I guess, an implied 40% chance. I think that should be closer to 50% chance. And so I'm happy to take Bilbao on the minus 1 goal handicap here at a very big price.
Yeah, plus 133. I like the way that Will's gone about the challenge here for the purpose of it. It reminds me of what IJ did last week, Steve, in fact, with 1 minus money play and 1 decent plus money play. Didn't think Inter were great against Salzburg in midweek. What are your thoughts on Will's selections here for the challenge, Steve?
I really quite like this Bilbao angle, and I think a shout out to Bilbao. It's the first time we've really talked about them on the shows this year. Will's right. They have a very, very strict policy about who can play for them. I don't think they've ever been relegated in their history, despite the squad registration. Correct, yeah. Incredible. But they're always consistent, aren't they? I think they're going to finish in the top 6 this year, I actually looked at them in the pre-season top 4 market, but instead I opted to go with Sociedad. But I think Bilbao are one of them teams, if they win a game, they tend to blow out the opposition, don't they? They either win when they win well, sort of thing. And those sort of teams can be quite profitable. So this is an interesting Asian handicap play, offering a bit of value and some security as well. If they just win by 1 goal, he's not going to lose anything. As for the Inter game, Inter Roma, I mean, both gentlemen have got selections on this game, and I'm really surprised that both are getting involved because, for me, I would clearly not get involved in it. I don't like to get involved in Mourinho games like this. Already, he's starting the mind games. I mean, I don't think he's even thinking about Slavia Prague, is he? He's been on about Lukaku. He's been on about Inter going to win the league by however many points. I wouldn't want to be betting against Jose Mourinho in a big game. But the thing with Italy, of all the leagues we cover, this is the league that I least follow in depth. And, are Inter really that much better? Maybe they are. I don't know enough about them. I've only seen them in the Champions League this year, and they've looked bang average, really, in those games. But domestically, their results are good. So I guess my question back to Will is, how much better are they, on your ratings compared to the rest of the league, Will?
I mean, according to my ratings, I've got them, I believe, 0.29 goals better, which is that's better than Napoli. Then Roma, they're 0.4 goals better, which with home advantage on top of that brings it to kind of the minus 0.75, minus 0.8 on the Asian handicap. So, I mean, to answer your question, quite a lot better.
Quite a lot, yeah.
And yeah, that's
maybe
my
Mourinho's
anyway.
right then. They should win the league by 10 plus points then. Maybe Jose's right. Maybe not 20 points.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, you can only we've kind of discussed the merits of models versus more human-based situational factors on these shows quite often when I've been on, and this is one where you do see a lot of money come for Inter week in, week out as well. So clearly, model-based players really see something in Inter that they really like, and the ascension of their rating this season has been quite dramatic. So. Often I rely on that type of thing rather than what I see with my eyes when I'm watching games.
Just one thing, Will, very quickly on Italian teams in Conference and Europa League football specifically. Do you almost ignore their performances? Because in my mind, it's only the Champions League that really matters for the Serie A sides. I know that we've seen Jose do well in the Conference League and indeed the Europa League in recent years, but a lot of Italian teams, in my mind, they change so much, they rotate so much. It's almost like an English League Cup feel to it. Is that fair with Italian teams as opposed to, say, Spanish teams that tend to take it a bit more seriously?
Yeah, I would say I don't even really look at their performances in those games. I look more at how much they rotate. So Fiorentina, for example, also playing tonight in the Conference League, they'll probably rotate 8 or 9 at least of their starting 11, whereas Roma, Mourinho tends to take European competition slightly more seriously. So I can see a more full-strength Roma lineup tonight. But then Steve makes a good point. He has been banging on about this game, and he has got a bee in his bonnet about this Inter game. So, I'm hoping Roma go full strength tonight, and my Inter bet will look even better then. But maybe they won't. Who knows?
Well, let's bring RJ in to get his 2 picks for the challenge. And as we've trailed already, RJ is also focusing on Inter against Roma. This time, though, we are looking for goals in this game for your particular play, RJ. Talk us through your Inter Roma bet.
Yeah, so match is this Sunday at San Siro. I had a hard time, to be honest, finding some decent plays this weekend in the top leagues. It took me a long time, and to Steve's point, this was a tough match to get involved with. I mean, you look at Inter; they have a 63% winning probability. They've scored 24 goals in 9 matches so far this season domestically, which ranks first in Serie A. They've won 7 out of 9 matches where they've been favored this season, so that bodes well for Will's pick with the under 4.5. And in 6 matches where Inter Milan have been at least this big of a favorite, they're 4-1-1. So very strong chance for them to at least come out of this match with the win. I agree with that. You look at Roma; they've scored 20 goals in 9 matches this season, ranking 2nd in Serie A for goals, and they've surrendered 12 goals, which ranks 10th. So they have not won any match this season as an underdog for what it's worth at this point. You look at the leaders of the team. Inter, they have Lautaro Martinez. He's got 24 shots, 11 goals. Marcus Thuram, 17 shots, 3 goals. And Federico Di Marco has created a team high 16 chances with 3 assists. And then you go to Roma, right? As we talked about or alluded to, we have Lukaku, right? Faces his former side, right? And you said Marino has a bee in his bonnet, right? I would say Lukaku similar, right? Looking forward to face his old side, maybe hearing some criticism. He's got 14 shots so far for Roma, 5 goals. Paulo Dybala, former Juventus man, has 12 shots, scoring 2 goals, and also has 2 assists. And Dybala is their top chance creator with 11. So, looking at some more additional insights, Inter Milan have finished with more than over 2.5 goals 6 times this season. Combined, an average 4.9 goals per contest, which is 2.4 more than the actual total here. 6 of Roma's games have featured over 2.5 goals, and the teams allow combined 1.9 goals per game. So you look at that. You look at the fact Inter's coming off of a midweek win against Salzburg in the Champions League, 3-0 win against Torino last time domestically. I think Roma are in strong form, right? There's no doubt about it. Both sides have won at least 3-4 of their last 5 matches. I think Inter's going to be a little bit too much for Roma. I still see both sides getting on the ball here, on the goal line here, and I think personally I see a 2-1, 3-1 type win for Inter. And I think, to be fair, I like both mine and Will's chances to come through here. And I think looking at this is probably one of the top goal lines in Europe this week. And coincidentally enough, they're both minus 115, right? My pick and Will's pick. So could be even straw here after the first match.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? They're both minus 115, so they could both easily win, as highlighted by the boys. RJ, let's get your second pick here. We dive into the Bundesliga for this one. It's Augsburg against Wolfsburg. This is 9:30 on the Saturday Eastern. And we know that the Bundesliga has just been terrific for overs this campaign. All the stats suggest that you go over 2.5. You're pushing the Asian line just a little bit further with this one. What's the pick?
Yeah, so looking at Augsburg versus Wolfsburg, over 2.75 goals at minus 117. The Bundesliga has been a goal factory this season thus far. The Augsburg is at home. Augsburg plus 191, Wolfsburg plus 128. Augsburg secured 8 points from 8 matches with a goal differential of minus 4. So 15 goals scored, 19 goals conceded. They do have goalkeeper Finn Daman back in net. He played last match as well. Wolfsburg accumulated 12 points from 8 matches with a goal differential of 0. So 11 goals scored, 11 goals conceded. And honestly, they were like this last season, right? They're not a team that you would expect to come out and the goals will just flow. They're a tough team. I think they're a pretty consistent team overall. They have the ability to open up matches though, and I think one of the you look at, I think if you look at the data here, you look at the analytics, you might lean towards the under here, right? Because of just the nature of how Wolfsburg have played so far. But one of the interesting things so far this season that stood out to me here with this is Augsburg home matches average around 4.5 goals per match. They have not failed to score. They have yet to keep a clean sheet. They average just over 2 goals for, 2 goals against. They played the likes of Bochum, Mainz, Darmstadt. Mönchengladbach, first match of the season at home, was a 4-4 affair. And then Wolfsburg on the road, they allowed 3 against Stuttgart. They kept it pretty tight against Dortmund, 1-0. Allowed 3 against Hoffenheim, and even FC Cologne, who have been quite poor and had a hard time finding the net, was able to find the net against his side. So I took that into consideration. I took the fact that Augsburg have some key players who can contribute, who can definitely get the job done here. And I think just with Wolfsburg coming off a loss against Darmstadt, they took care of business against Augsburg. And then Wolfsburg coming off 2 straight losses has that little extra sauce, right? Little extra flair for them to come into this match, not just trying to settle or not trying to maintain. They're trying to get back on the board and retain some points here. So over 2.75 at -117 was. I think it's a bit of a reach. I do like the chances though of at least retaining half stake, half profit here, and I think it should be an entertaining match.
And that half stake, you never know, might be the crucial little bit of profit or non-loss that might tip it in your favour. Steve, I know that this is one of your leans, so you've got to have the thumbs up for your Bundesliga play from RJ here.
Yeah, this was nearly very close to being an official pick of mine. I basically just opted against it because I felt I was a bit too boring backing these German overs every single week. Because you don't want to be betting the unders in this league right now. There's a case for betting the overs blind on every fixture, Dan, apart from perhaps Frankfurt, but even they had an over last week.
They did.
And the mad thing is, if you look at the metrics of this league, actually 9 teams are underachieving in front of goal. It's absolutely outrageous. So there might be even more in the tank for some sides. There's only one team, and that's Leipzig, who are massively overachieving in front of goal. And then you could say about them, they've got loads of individual quality. So it's an obvious over, really. And I couldn't really argue against any over in the Bundesliga right now. Back to this game in Serie A. I mean, it's all eyes on this Inter against Roma game, isn't it? It's incredible that Roma are averaging the most goals per game in Serie A, their fixtures. I mean, I'd never known that about a Mourinho side. I don't think I've ever betted on an over in a Mourinho match before. It's kind of one of those ingrained into me. Jose Mourinho, big game. He'll park the bus. He'll time waste. But maybe this Roma side is different. Maybe he's not got the players he wants. So, you can't argue with the stats, can you? At the minute, their games are full of goals more. So, good luck to both guys here. It could. I wasn't going to watch this game, but I think I probably will now because there's so much on the line.
Just with RJ and with Will, but I'll ask RJ first. When do we stop betting overs? I'll ask it to Steve as well. When do we stop betting overs for Germany? I mean, do we just keep doing this? Is it just going to be a season-long thing? The price has got to catch up at some stage, I guess.
Yeah, no, it definitely will, Dan. I think the price will catch up. It usually always does, but I think that's why it's important, and that's why I rely on data, right? I don't typically look at trends. To be fair, I don't look at XG at all. I know some of you guys do, and fair play, but it's not a metric that I even consider. So I think taking out XG for me personally, I just look at results versus what's expected or what is presumed to be what a team can and should deliver on a day-to-day basis. I think you just have to look at rotation. You have to look at, as you get deeper in the season, right, with international breaks and Champions League, you got to look at scheduling. You got to look at condensed scheduling specifically, because typically, even though there's going to be rotation, fatigue will set in for the core players. And I think that's when you start looking at reduced goal totals and reduced goal output as you get towards, I think November, December here.
You sounded like Nigel Seeley now. What is it? Remember, the goals go down in December or November or whatever suits his narrative.
Every month, isn't it? There's one for October, there's one for November.
Will, you ready to put your XG models in the bin?
No, I'm not yet. Yeah, I mean, there are some very advanced metrics out there, and I know that Jack on the Premier League shows, he's been talking about field tilt quite a lot recently. I'm not really one for the super advanced metrics. It's a lot of work, frankly, keeping up to date with all of that. But I do think you need some baseline awareness of variance and the fact that teams, football is a sport, or soccer, sorry, is a sport with a low number of kind of goals, essentially. And so often you can get results of games that don't show the true a true reflection of what's actually happened. And I think when you're looking at outlier events like high number of goals in Bundesliga, that's the first place you should kind of look for an explanation of when things are going to quote unquote regress to the mean, is look in the underlying data and see if it really is an outlier. But Steve mentioned in Bundesliga, there are 9 teams that are actually converting under the underlying the number of chances that the underlying data would suggest. So I can see this continuing. It's more a case of when the market's going to catch up, really, if anything.
Yeah, it seems really difficult to me. I can get hung up on expected goals, and it can take a long time, I think, sometimes for the actual goals and expected goals to converge, and you can certainly go down a rabbit hole with it, and it might not be profitable. And we go week to week on this show, and it can be difficult sometimes to stick with certain plays. So we've got RJ's tips. We have got Will's selections as well. Always, we're going to get Steve's best bets of the weekend. Let's go back to back with yours, Steve. You've got a couple of picks for us, one in France, one in Germany.
Yeah, well, we'll go back to the Bundesliga here. It's just a question of which over I picked. And I've gone with Mönchengladbach against Heidenheim. Over 3.25 is the line for this one. So it's quite a higher goal line. It worked for me last week, though, in the Heidenheim fixture. I mean, their defence is a joke. I'm actually starting to get really worried about Heidenheim. I think they were the bookies' pre-season favourites to go down. I can see why. Their expected goals against and actually goals conceded on the field is an abysmal level. They concede far too many chances. They might be showing signs that they're a bit out of their depth at this level. So Mönchengladbach, this is a time for them to feast here. I think Gladbach are actually a massive price in this game. They're you can get about minus 115 on them, and I think they'll win easily. I think they're capable of covering the goal line on their own. They've had a tough fixture list at home. They've faced some good teams, so I think forget about that home record. But one thing about Gladbach is that they're also defensively dangerous. I mean, last week they were terrible against Cologne. I completely got that one wrong. And, fair play to Cologne. They put a performance up. But Gladbach, it was very worrying defensively. I could see Heidenheim getting on the score sheet. Probably the only way they're going to get a result here. They're not going to keep a clean sheet. So I think just naturally betting on the goals here over 3.25. It's a line I've done well for me recently. And I think I'm seeing something like 4-1 here, maybe 3-1 to Mönchengladbach. So a clear over, as a lot of overs are in the Bundesliga right now. And back to France. And this was a pick I used a lot last year on last year's shows, both teams to score. But the prices have been so poor on both teams scoring Liga this year. I think the bookies have kind of cottoned on from last year. But actually, there's quite a lot of value on unders in France at the moment rather than overs. But this is a rare example where I like both teams score. Yes, Lens against Nantes. Lens have just actually not kept that many clean sheets this year. They're making too many mistakes and they give up enough big chances against a Nantes side who are under the radar a bit offensively. I quite like what I see from them. They're good on the counter attack. They've scored in every game apart from one this season, and I think they're a big price as well here. I wouldn't be surprised if Nantes got a result. Lens have struggled in both fixtures after playing Champions League before. The CL games have taken a lot out of them. They've been sloppy defensively, and Nantes, I think, at very least can get on the score sheet. And what I like about both teams scoring is it covers the 1-1 draw, and you need that scoreline covered in Lens games this season. In all competitions, it's been a dangerous score. So I think it was minus 117 on both teams scoring here, which is you're not getting big odds on both teams scoring in France these days at all. There's probably value on both teams scoring no in some fixtures. I insinuated it last week, didn't I, in the Monaco game down, and then the Mets scored from the halfway line. But this particular match, I think it's going to end at least 1-1, and I've got a feeling that Nantes get a result.
So those are the two picks from Steve. Let's get some hot dogs, some barking dogs, shall we? They have proved very popular and profitable when Steve has listed them over the course of this season so far. We've opened it up to our other handicappers here to serve one up. So let's be quick with these. We've got two on Saturday, one on Sunday. Steve, you're first up, 9:30 Eastern. And this is the biggest priced dog I think that we've had all season, isn't it? Talk us through it.
Stuttgart against Hoffenheim, and I'm going with Hoffenheim, who've served me very well this season. Plus 300 on the visitors to win this game. Now, the thing is, Hoffenheim are one of those sides, I think, if you're betting 1x2, and back in the day, I only ever used to bet on this market. And I remember some people used to say to me, how do you make profit on 1x2? Well, these are the sort of teams that can really help you out, because Hoffenheim are the sort of side who can beat anyone on their day and lose to anyone on their day. So over the course of a season, I reckon a level stake on Hoffenheim money line will get you profit, because they will win at some big prices. And this is an example of it. Stuttgart, to be fair, I got them wrong last week. They played very well against Union Berlin. It was a good pick from RJ as well, by the way, on the team total. And they have been legitimate this season. They've not been unlucky. Look at their metrics. Well done to them. But they have had a soft schedule. I just wonder, can Stuttgart really keep up these performances? Like, if you look at the quality of their squad, it's got to logically come down at some point. It just has to. If they keep it up, then fair play. But they've had a massive injury blow this week. The main man, Surya Guirassy, who scored last week, he proved me wrong as well. Probably out 3 or 4 weeks, and he's a massive player for them. He doesn't just score goals, he sets up goals. Teams have got to double team him. Dennis Undav's probably going to come in and replace him up front on loan from Brighton. He's not bad, but I think Guirassy, missing him, is a big test for Stuttgart. And Hoffenheim, I can't believe they're such a big dog here. They've got a good away record this season. Stuttgart are not. As I said, I'm just waiting for Stuttgart to drop off, really, down it. Just logically, they have to drop down. So plus 300 just screams out as big value to me.
Will, let's get your dog. You've gone for the biggest game in Europe this weekend, and I suspect that the most handle as well, stateside. This is, of course, Clásico in Spain, Real Madrid against Barcelona. What's the play?
Well, I'm a Barca fan, Dan, and I'm not very optimistic about Barca's chances in this game. And it's mainly about the injuries. Really, players down the total spine of the Barca side, the starting 11, they're missing at least 5, really, you would think. Pedri, Koundé, and De Jong are all almost certainly miss out. Lewandowski's back in training, but, you know, even if Lewandowski and Rafinha make it, they're likely to be not at 100%, and that's not the right kind of state of mind or physical condition to go into a game like this in. So it's hard to really put a value on that. Model-wise, still, Barcelona should be favourites for this game, but when you take into consideration all of the injuries, you've got to move that price quite far. And so I like Real Madrid here, plus 180. I think it's a massive price. I think the draw is a little bit too short, especially in modern football, where teams are, I think we've discussed this before, tend to be kind of risking the 1 point they've got if they've 10 minutes left and they're drawing 0-0, 1-1, 2-1, whatever. Like they're willing to put that point at risk to go for the extra 2 more often. And so I think too much margin on the draw here, and Real Madrid at plus 180. They've also got the extra day's rest. Barcelona really had to play all there to go as full strength as they possibly could on Wednesday in Champions League, and they're likely to be going with a very similar lineup this weekend. Real Madrid had the luxury of rotating a little bit. They're pretty much at full strength, albeit missing Courtois, but very capable replacements in Kepa. So yeah, I think Real Madrid should probably be closer to plus 140, plus 150 here.
So in the big game in Spain, it's Real Madrid to claim the scalp of Barcelona. And finally, when it comes to the hot dogs, RJ, you've been good with team totals this season, but this is a different type of spin on the play, isn't it, here? Because you've gone for the Bayer Leverkusen game, and Bayer have been fantastic to watch. What's the price? What's your dog this weekend that's going to buck?
Yeah, so looking at Bayer Leverkusen team total over 1.5 in the first half, plus 200 against Freiburg. This was a bit of a challenge to locate a play with this kind of value, but you look at a Bayer Leverkusen side who have been very strong, obviously sitting first place, and they've created some of the most chances. Jonas Hoffmann for Bayer Leverkusen actually ranks 5th with 17 big chances created. And I think mainly I could get into some detail on these teams. I think, typically looking at the numbers, you're averaging 4.2 goals per game between these sides. So I expect a good amount of goals. You see the goal total at over 3.5. And I think there's a lot of potential here on this match too, because of just standings, especially for Freiburg. They could shift up pretty big with a win and a Leipzig loss. So I look at this from a perspective of how did Freiburg perform against like foes, right? And the fact of the matter is Stuttgart took care of them 5-0. They put up 3 in the first half. And I can see this type of match. I do expect Freiburg to get on the board, to be fair. But I think we could see 2-0 Bayer Leverkusen at halftime. And then they kind of cruise and coast. And they probably do hit over 3.5 for the full game total. But at this price, I think it's very well worth a bit of a reach.
Plus 200, Bayer Leverkusen, team total, first half, over 1.5 is the dog. If you want to roll them up into a parlay, it's around about 33-1. Let's get some leans quickly to wrap up with. RJ, you suggested it's a It's a tough card. You haven't offered a lean here. I guess if we
Mm.
went down into the Norwegian second division, you might have something for us, or maybe USL.
Yep.
But we're going to get a couple from Will and a couple from Steve. Just watch out for Twitter, for RJ's Twitter feed if you want selections like that. Will, quickly, you've got 2 in Italy for us.
Yeah, first one is Lecce on the draw no bet or the +0 Asian handicap at -110 at home to Torino. I do quite like Lecce, but this bet is more about opposing Torino, who I just think are overrated in the markets. They've got an underwhelming record, even at first glance, having scored 6 and conceded 12 this season, albeit with a tough schedule. But they also have 2 very big injuries. Schurz, who was a key centre-back, is out long-term. And also Duvan Zapata, who they brought in from Atalanta in the off-season, is doubtful for this game. He missed out last weekend. It just feels like there's more chance of a Lecce win here than a Torino win for me. I do quite like Lecce. They've got a decent home record, 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. And they're albeit outperforming their underlying data. They've also had quite a tough schedule. They've played the likes of Lazio, Fiorentina, Juventus, and Napoli so far this season. So yeah, I like, that's the first one. And my second is also in Serie A. I'm quite Serie A heavy this week. Lazio +140 to beat Fiorentina. You've got to ask yourself, what kind of price would this game have been in most prior seasons? And the answer is they were +100 in the same game last season. I think both teams are probably slightly worse this season. At the same time, I take on board Lazio absolutely horrendous against Feyenoord in the Champions League midweek. This is more of a gut feel play, but also backed up by the market implied of the fact that in a normal season prior to this, they would have been more like +100, +110. And I think they're slightly the better team here. Fiorentina also playing tonight in the Conference League, albeit likely to rotate probably 8 or 9 of their starting 11.
Lazio +140 look a fair price to me. And Steve, quickly with your picks, 1 in Italy, and you've sort of already mentioned the Germany one, but rattle through it for us again.
Yeah, well, the German lean is the same as RJ's pick in the Augsburg game, over 2.75 goals. I won't go any more into that, but I nearly had this as an official play in Italy, and it's Sassuolo against Bologna over 2.75 goals. So nearly an official play, but then I just thought, well, it's just so easy to rake up on the German overs, isn't it? So went with the safe option. But I think there's goals in this game. Sassuolo are one of those sides. If you watch them over the last couple of years, they are a good watch. Quite entertaining football. They play quite open football. The highest XGAs against them in the league. And it's because of their style, really. But they've got enough offensive firepower like Berardi. You know, he's a good bloke to back on any time scorer, really. Bologna, I've got to say, I don't know much about them. I can't even remember watching a Bologna play, Dan. But metrics of them are fairly decent in both ends of the field. You know, they've got goals in them, but at the same time, you don't really trust their defense. So I think it's a good chance of an over in this game. The line is it's not a massive value line, though. I'd rather be on over 2.5 here, if I'm being brutally honest with you, Dan. So that's why this is only a lean, not an official play, but over 2.75. I think we're looking at goals, probably both teams scoring, and a decent game of football.
Yeah, Berardi's a wonderful player. Keeps getting linked with Juventus. He's 29 now. If he goes in January, I think Sassuolo might have a significant dip second half of the season. Best bets from our handicappers. RJ, what's your best play this weekend of the 2 that you put up?
I'm going to go with Inter Roma over 2.5.
Will?
I think I'm going to go with my hot dog, actually. Real Madrid +180.
Love it. Steve?
Yeah, mine is also the hot dog, +300 on Hoffenheim. This could look a massive price come the end of the weekend.
Challenge is going to be tight. Could revolve around the Inter game, but they're the same price, of course, at -115. Who's going to win the challenge, Steve? Have any of us got it right so far between us? Did I get it right last week? Did I say
no?
RJ last
Did you
week?
even predict last week?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I said RJ would win.
I really like the German over, obviously. I do like that Bilbao handicap bet as well. And the thing is with the Inter game, I just don't have a clue, to be honest, Dan. I just don't have a clue. I could go absolutely either way, in my opinion. So I just going to wish them best of luck, really. And let's slug it out. And it's going to be a slugfest, isn't it, that match?
Steve, RJ, Will, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everyone updated, of course, via our X feeds. That wraps up Betting Weekly Extra Time European Show. I'll be back alongside Steve next week, as will one of RJ or Will. He'll be taking on James Easton. He'll be back, and make sure you stay across all of the Bet Rivers content this weekend via @BecauseWeWin from all of us. For now, though, it is goodbye.